noticed something lately? You start things with the best intentions, but somehow you just can't stay consistent. You tell yourself, I'll wake up early, I'll start exercising, I'll stop procrastinating, I'll focus on myself this time. And for maybe 2 days, sometimes even a week, you actually do it. Then, then life happens. You get tired, work gets stressful, responsibilities pile up, your mood changes, your energy drops, and slowly you go back to old patterns again. Not because you don't care, not because you're lazy, but because staying consistent today feels harder than ever before. Hi, I'm Bhavna, and honestly, this is something I see so many people silently struggling with, especially people between 25 and 45, because this phase of life is heavy. You're trying to balance work, relationships, responsibilities, expectations, emotional exhaustion. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you are also trying to improve your life. And that's where the frustration begins. Because deep down, you know what you should be doing. But knowing and doing are two completely different things. And I think this is where most conversations about discipline completely fail people. Because the internet talks about discipline like it's supposed to feel powerful all the time. Wake up at 5 a.m., push harder, stay motivated, be productive every single day. But real life doesn't work like that, especially when your mind is already exhausted. One thing I've noticed while listening to people and reading their experiences online is that most people are not actually struggling with laziness. They are struggling with inconsistency caused by overwhelm. Someone once said, I only go to the gym for 10 minutes 3 times a week. But it's the longest I've ever stayed consistent. And honestly, that's more powerful than forcing yourself into a perfect routine you secretly hate. Because consistency is not built through intensity, it's built through repeatability. That's the part most people miss. A lot of us are trying to completely change our lives overnight. And the brain naturally resists that. Not because you're weak, but because drastic change feels unsafe to the mind. So what happens? You build unrealistic routines. You try to become a different person by Monday. And when you can't maintain it, you feel guilty and eventually you stop trusting yourself. That loss of self-trust is what hurts the most. The other big reason people struggle, they constantly depend on motivation to take action. But motivation is emotional. Consistency is behavioral. And emotions change every single day. Some mornings you'll feel inspired. Other days you'll feel mentally drained before the day even starts. That's normal. The problem starts when every action depends on feeling motivated first. Because then, your mood becomes your manager. And honestly, sustainable growth usually looks much quieter than social media makes it seem. Sometimes consistency looks like going for a 10-minute walk, writing 1 page, reading 2 paragraphs, cleaning 1 corner of your room, sleeping on time twice this week instead of never. These things sound small, but repeated small actions completely change how you see yourself over time. And there's something else people don't talk about enough. Your environment affects your discipline more than your willpower ever will. If your life constantly drains you, your consistency will suffer. If you're emotionally overwhelmed, your nervous system stays in survival mode, always on the edge. And when your brain is trying to survive, growth becomes difficult. This is why so many people feel guilty for not being disciplined enough, when actually they're mentally exhausted. There is a difference, and social media has made consistency even harder. Because now, you're constantly watching people wake up at 5 a.m., work out daily, run businesses, meditate, journal, and your brain quietly starts to feel like, I'm failing at life. But comparison quietly destroys consistency. Because instead of building your own rhythm, you start chasing somebody else's lifestyle. Real consistency starts when you stop asking, how do I completely change my life? And start asking, what can I realistically repeat? The question changes everything. Because discipline is not punishment. It's self-leadership. It's learning how to guide yourself even when life feels messy. Not perfectly, not intensely, but steadily. There's a quote that really stayed with me. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your life is shaped more by your daily patterns than your big intentions. That's why consistency matters so much. Not because it makes you more productive, but because it slowly changes your identity. Every repeated action sends your brain a message. This is who I am becoming. So if you've been struggling lately, if you keep starting and stopping, if you've been frustrated with yourself, I want you to stop seeing yourself as lazy. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe your approach has been unrealistic. Maybe you've been trying to force change instead of building it gradually. And maybe you don't need a harder routine. You need a kinder one you can actually sustain. This week, don't focus on changing your entire life. Focus on proving to yourself that you can stay consistent with one small thing. One walk, one page, one boundary, one habit. Repeat it gently. Because confidence doesn't only come from achievement. Sometimes it comes from finally trusting yourself again and again. Let me know in the comments below. What's the one thing you've been struggling to stay consistent with lately? And if you want support around mindset, emotional overwhelm, confidence, and personal growth, you can book a clarity and confidence reset session through the Inspirited Life Curve. You'll find the link below in the description. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful and inspirited day. Bye.